Greetings, everybody, wherever you may be, and welcome once again to Kourou, the home of the Ariane family, for tonight's launch of Arianespace flight number 196. We are on time, all is green, we're ready to go here at the space base, and to get us underway, some opening words from Arianespace's Chairman and Chief Executive Officer, Jean-Yves Le Gall.
Bonjour. Good evening. This is the third launch of the year of an Ariane 5 for Arianespace, with 2 satellites for Africa and the Middle East. RASCOM-QAF1R is the second satellite we've launched for the RASCOM organization, after the first such satellite that we launched in December 2007, and NILESAT 201, which is the third satellite that we've launched for NILESAT in Egypt, after the first 2 which we delivered in 1998 and 2000. These 2 satellites were built by Thales and Arianespace, a very important partner of Arianespace, since nearly 2/3 of their satellites have been launched by us. So for tonight's mission, since the 2 satellites are practically identical, we will benefit from a particularly long launch window. The window usually lasts 30 or 40 minutes, but tonight's is over 2 hours. Therefore, this launch will contribute to improving telecommunication services in the Middle East and in Africa, which are, of course, both very dynamic markets right now. As I said, this is the third launch of 2010, but we have a full program ahead of us between now and the end of the year, because 3 other launches are scheduled after tonight's. And in parallel, activity here at the Guyana Space Center is quite intense, since the campaign for the first Soyuz mission here at the CSG is already underway, as is the campaign for the first Vega mission, and we're also busy preparing the second ATV launch, to be called Johannes Kepler, after the first ATV Jules Verne, which we launched in March 2008. As you can see, we have a lot of work on our plate, even in the summer period. Without further ado, let's watch our latest mission, Ariane 5, ECA, RASCOM-QAF1R, and NILESAT 201.
Some exciting times here, as you can see, at the space base with Vega and Soyuz. Not only the 3rd launch of the year, but the 52nd Ariane 5, the 196th in all, the program beginning back in 1979. On the left, you saw the green status panels. All is well. We'll give a rundown on those in a minute. Tonight, of course, represents the culmination of months of work, years for some, and many people are involved in ensuring the mission's success. Among them, the Mission High Command, Jean-Yves Le Gall, Patrick Loire, the director of the Kourou site for Ariane, named in April. Edward Perez, who is the living memory of Ariane, knows everything that happened on every launch. And representing the French National Space Agency, Michel Aymard. Any unforeseen events coming up, these men will be deciding what to do about it in consultation with their teams here at the space base and elsewhere. Other teams work specifically on the launch and launcher operations, and for a word on that now, we go to the Launch Operations Manager, Daniel Groot.
Every campaign is special, because with each one we are faced with special anomalies. For the West, the procedures are standard, and we try to remain as close as possible to activities we are already familiar with.
Assembly of the launcher is pretty standard. For tonight's mission, its parts, which were fabricated in Europe, arrived in French Guiana by ship in early June. Assembly of these elements began on the 24th inside the launcher integration building. The main cryogenic stage, the 2 solid boosters, and the upper stage were all fitted on the launch table.
Arianespace began taking responsibility for launcher activities in the launcher integration building, even while still in the phase directly by the prime contractor. But everything concerning onboard interface is managed by Arianespace, assuming total responsibility of the launcher when it is transferred to the final assembly building, where everything comes under direction of CPAP and COEL.
This transfer took place on July 15th. RASCOM-QAF1R was integrated on the launcher first on July 26th. Then NILESAT, already on the Silda, was fitted the following day. The fairing, a long version of 17 meters, was then placed over the satellites. A launch rehearsal took place on July 29th. And the now complete launcher and the 2 passengers were then transferred from the final assembly building to the launch zone.
What's the most intense part of the launcher campaign? The answer is simple, the countdown. We have an enormous number of operations which must be carried out under difficult conditions. The propellants are flowing in the pipes at a very cold temperature. There are restrictions everywhere, and it's important to keep to the schedule. To sum up, the most intense moment is a synchronized sequence, 7 minutes before T0.
Tonight's launch window is a long one, over 2.5 hours, opening at 17:45, closing at 20:34 Kourou time. While you were watching that film, the interview with the Launch Campaign Director, Daniel Groot, you may see on the upper right hand of the screen that we got a red, which means the countdown is momentarily at a halt. A red on, we don't know what exactly, but something, some computer somewhere has found something out of the ordinary. The clock still seems to be ticking, however. Arianespace celebrating its 30th anniversary this year, celebrating with well over 50% of the market share, remaining well out ahead in the world leader in launch service and solutions. Arianespace's commercial side, working with the customers again, is very important. And again, Ariane has dedicated teams in charge of launch service contracts, and you just saw 2 of them. You saw Tom Panazzo and Pierre-Yves Bertin working with the customers. 2 more participants making the launch possible tonight, Dan Murray from Arianespace, and the mission coordinator, activities on the launch pad coordinated by him, working side by side with Emmanuel Sanchez, the TDO.
Arrêt du temps des comptes sur rouge, sauvegarde. Que tous les moyens restent prêts à une reprise de la chronologie sur retour au vert.
Emmanuel Sanchez, who's the range operations manager, called the DDO. You'll be hearing his voice as he calls out the milestones, and he just called out one, which was a stopping of the countdown at -7 minutes. You see the red bars on the left. État base, that's the launch base. Sauvegarde also means safety. So there's something untoward over there. And he said also to be ready to pick up the countdown again at a short notice. So we're waiting right now. The countdown has been stopped at -7 minutes, which is the very beginning of the final moments of final countdown, which is called the synchronized sequence. And we'll give you an explanation of that in just a moment. But before we do, we want to explain these holds in the countdown, which can happen. It's one of the status panels turns red, as you can see has happened on the left. That's actually, it's perfectly normal. It's a well-rehearsed part of any launch. The system is specifically designed for it. That's why we have this launch window, which gives us time to sort out any problems that come up. And remember, the window tonight is a very long one. Usually they're roughly, I would say, habitually 45 minutes. Tonight it's well over 2 hours. So we have plenty of time to solve any problems. We have stopped the countdown now, and the clock is reset at 7 minutes. Now, we'll stay there while we're checking the anomaly, because of course safety is #1 interest at Arianespace. The company doesn't want to take any risks. Launch is only authorized if everything is perfect. All those parameters that you see on the left, the green status panels, telemetry and telecommunications, everything on the launch vehicle, everything on the satellites, and everything at the launch base, plus many, many more, all they have to be perfect. So if one turns red, what happens is we stop and we think, what's happening now behind the scenes? Well, what people are doing, people are working on the range to try to deal with the anomaly, I should say. They've done this many, many times before. When you get something unexpected, it's sort of like a stop sign. It's the same color, actually. You stop and think. People begin to examine any unexpected parameters. People begin to examine how to move back into the launch window. So there's a real logic, and procedures are there, and they're the same for the satellites and for the launch vehicle. What happens up in the launch control center, where you saw the COL just a moment ago, he and his team of about 150 people are looking at the parameters, analyzing them. This can take 5 minutes, it can take longer. Meanwhile, the COL is putting the launcher back into launch configuration, and it'll be ready to go once the problem has been solved. This means, among other things, back to -7 minutes, where we are still waiting in the beginning of the synchronized sequence. We are still holding at -7 minutes. I think maybe it would be best if we go look for some information to give you and give you a break, and we'll be back when we have something to tell you. So hold on. Well, we are still waiting for a recommencement of the countdown, and while we're doing that, we can give you just a little more information on what a red is all about, and very shortly we're going to be showing a film which will explain it probably better than I can about what the red, the procedures for reds are. If the people involved who are checking the anomaly think it's a small problem, they can make the call that, okay, let's fix it, we can still launch in the window, in the time limit. If it's a bigger problem, then they have to start thinking about other things, like postponing the launch, but we're not there yet. Take a look at this film, it'll tell you all about it.
Here, in the launch center, a red signal automatically stops the chronology. Depending on when the red signal is triggered, either before the beginning of the synchronized sequence, i.e. before H0-7 minutes, or after, it is managed in a totally different way. Before H0-7, the teams will maintain the launcher as it is, and may have to stabilize it if needed. After H0-7 minutes, the launcher is totally controlled by the computers within the launch center. Therefore, during synchronization, as soon as a signal has been given, which initiates the launcher securing operations, the first thing I have to do as call is to turn the key on red in order to avoid any accidental restart of a new synchronized sequence. Once the launcher has been stabilized and once the key has been set on red, we can move on to the next step. The QAL asks all his assistants in charge of all the various systems to reconfigure their devices and get back to a status that will make it possible to resume synchronization as soon as possible. Because as you may know, the launch window is limited in time, and it's important for us to be able to resume countdown as quickly as possible. Therefore, when chronology is interrupted, the 100 engineers present in this room are each responsible for monitoring a specific element of the launcher and for returning to safety mode. So, inside the launch center, every console has a specific role to play. Here, we're standing in front of the console dedicated to fluids management, which is going to control the ergo configuration of the launcher. During the chronology at the launch center, we have put in place the teams required for the launcher switching on, as well as a technical authority team, which has a real-time control over all parameters that allow us to carry out the launch whilst having a safe and secure launcher for the purpose of the flight. Once the root of an anomaly has been dealt with in cooperation with operational teams, with the technical authority teams, the customers and the Jupiter Center teams, we're then in a position to restart a fresh synchronized sequence. To do so, I will turn the launcher status key, which will authorize the head of operations to resume the countdown from the Jupiter control room. When the chronology is stopped, the role of Arianespace teams is to ensure the safety of both the launcher and the satellites.
Hearing from Jean-Louis Barlet there, another launch manager for Arianespace, giving you an idea of what's going on now up there at the launch center. His teams are analyzing the problem and calling on specialists even, if need be, out in Evry near Paris at Arianespace headquarters or elsewhere in Europe. And of course the Ariane Flight Directorate, which you saw at the top of the broadcast. Everyone participating in the decision. That's more or less what's going on now. Apparently one of the computers, or maybe both, has detected an anomaly, and that there are two computers being used in the synchronized sequence, checking out all the 1,000,001 things that have to be working properly. If one computer detects something wrong, they both stop, which is why we stop the countdown. The computers begin immediately putting the launcher in what they call a secure configuration. That's where she was before we started this synchronized sequence at -7 minutes, which, remember, is the final sequence, the moment when power is passing to Ariane. She's becoming autonomous. Now the COEL, you just saw Mr. Barlet and Mr. Groot tonight. He has a key, just to be sure, and he actually turns off physically these computers so nobody can start the synchronized sequence again by mistake. And what he does, he directs his team to start examining and identifying the problem and start thinking about solutions. That's what's going on now. He doesn't himself work on the problem, but he gives that to his teams. They work on the information, call on specialists if needed, and then the team will propose a plan to the Flight Directorate and to Mr. Legel. And it's eventually the Flight Directorate that will give a green light. So that is where we are. You can see we have two red bars on what should be apple green status panels from top to bottom. So we've been holding for about 3, 4, 5 minutes now. But remember, we have a very long launch window, over 2.5 hours. So we should not have too much of a problem. Hopefully the COEL and his teams will solve the problem and have a solution in about 5 or 10 minutes. Remember, all this is a normal procedure. Remember also that a red is also a means of conveying information. It's a momentary interruption in the synchronized sequence, and all these systems are constantly being monitored. All the thousands of measurements of electricity and pressure and temperature and speed and others, and all these different systems in a very complex bit of machinery like Ariane. And one apparently has not shown what it should show, so that's how we get a red, and then we have to determine what has caused it and how to fix it. So that is what's going on. That is what's happening. When we have a little more information, we'll be back. Well, you see, we've lost 2 of the red bars. We had 3 up there. We're waiting for 1 to switch back on to green, and then hopefully we can take off again. The red, remember, it's something that's been prepared and planned. There's the procedure books that are full of procedures on what to do during a red. It's all pretty much been seen before. There's a lot in the archive, so there's no reason to panic. There we are.
À tous de l'aider haut, retour au vert des moyens, et donc nous redémarrons la chronologie. 3, 2, 1, top.
There we are. The clock is ticking again. We were told that there was a lowering in power, I think on somewhere in one of the satellites. I'm not sure about that. We have to check, but it was a momentary thing. And people wanted to just make sure, of course, that we can still go, and we are still going. The DDO has called out a picking up again of the countdown. You can see we're ticking. We're under 7 minutes. This is the automatic sequence now. The computers, 2 computers, are gradually allowing the launcher to become autonomous. It's 7 minutes of checks and rechecks and controls and monitoring, power passing from the ground to the launcher and her onboard systems. Meanwhile, inside the fairing at the top of the launcher, NILESAT, the upper passenger, 3.2 tons. The heavier passenger is often, but not always, separated first. It is the case tonight. Under NILESAT is what they call the SILDA, which is the black bell-shaped structure you can see there. That's a carrying structure allowing for the second satellite, RASCOM. 7 meters tall tonight for the SILDA, using for the very first time a longer one, 60 centimeters longer than the other ones before. And inside the SILDA is RASCOM, 3 tons. The satellite's placed in position in the final assembly building. That's one of the main facilities on the base. You'll see later how that's done. While they're in the final assembly building, they're kept cool by air conditioning at 20 degrees. Out here on the pad inside the launcher, the temperature is 14 degrees. And from the satellites, we turn to our final group of key participants in the launch tonight, the satellite mission directors. Every customer has one. It's usually a technical person. They follow the campaign and the preparation. Basically, it's going to be their call if the satellite is ready to go or not. And talking about preparation, that's one of the things that goes on at a space base. A launch base is where the launcher and the payloads, of course, are prepared. But they're also launched and monitored before and all during the mission. This space base in French Guiana happens to be the world's only dedicated commercial space base, Arianespace operating the launcher family, and as you have seen, soon to be augmented with Soyuz and Vega. Arianespace also managing the launcher and the satellite campaigns as well. Europe's space effort is a 3-way affair, basically, between Arianespace and the European Space Agency, ESA, and the French Space Agency, which is called CNES. ESA basically funding new programs and building the space base. The CNES, or the CSG, responsible for the launch support activities here in the space base, and Arianespace, operator of the launcher family. Launcher on the pad waiting. You can see we're going in daylight for the first time actually in a couple of months. December of last year was the last daytime launch, if I'm not mistaken. Another look at the COEL and the launch management teams. There are about 150 people up there, 14 kilometers from where we are here in Jupiter, closer to the pad. Basically, you're looking at 3 teams. One coordinates the launcher campaign and the countdown, and they're in the middle of that right now. There's a second team with them that guarantees flight readiness. This team signs off on the OK to fly, and also signs off on the OK to transfer the vehicle from the final assembly building to the pad. You saw that a little earlier in the film. There's a third team, which is a quality team, independent from those 2 others. All these men and women are up in the CDL3 building, making sure everything is ready. You need all these people because, as you can imagine, Ariane 5 is a very complex machine. A million things have to be working perfectly, and Arianespace will not give the launch a green light unless they are. One of the last shots you're going to see concerns the upper part of the vehicle. This is a split-screen shot of the propellant feeder arms feeding the upper stage. Liquid hydrogen on the left, liquid oxygen on the right. And we want to take just a minute to explain it. The propellant feeder arms in the upper stage The upper stage needs to be filled. You can see the propellant feeder arms with the yellow bars going across horizontally. The upper stage needs to be filled right off to liftoff because the very cold liquid propellant inside, and when I say very cold, I'm talking about liquid hydrogen at minus 240 degrees. This very cold propellant evaporates in this tropical climate here in Kourou, so it needs a constant topping up. At minus 5 seconds, these arms will pull back, so we want you to watch for that. That gets things going. Some of the Thales Alenia people arrived before the satellites arrived here in what they call an early team to install the project networks and to start the campaign. You can see them here. 2 minutes to go until liftoff. You're watching Arianespace flight number 196, NILESAT 201, and RASCOM-QAF1R. The green status panels, which were stopped momentarily ago, but all is well now, you can see what these are is it's a summary of the different launch services across this vast launch base. You can see them there: safety, the weather, telemetry, telecommunications, the launcher, and the satellites. All these different divisions across the base here send the information, this is a summary of it as a go or a no-go, into Jupiter here, which is why we call Jupiter the nerve center of space base. We're smack in the middle of it. And the DDO makes the call to stop the countdown or not. And you're going to hear him in just a minute again calling out the 1 minute mark. And we'll be into the final 60 seconds of tonight's mission.
À tous de DDO, attention pour moins 1 minute.
In a few seconds, we'll be into the final 60 seconds.
Moins 1 minute.
Now, we mentioned what to watch for, minus 5 seconds. You'll hear the DDO calling out 10, 9, 8. And when it gets to 5, the camera will be on the arms, the propellant arms, and you watch them swing back. That gets the whole thing started. Also, watch out for 1,500 cubic meters of water, which is going to start to come pouring in from the water tower on the launch pad. This will deaden the thermal shocks and the noise, which could damage the satellite at liftoff. So the sequence begins with the arms. At minus 3 seconds, we move into flight mode. The computers give the order to activate the navigation and guidance systems. At 0, the DDO will call out allumage, which is ignition and the main engine lights, but we don't lift off yet. Count to 7. For 7 seconds, the computers are checking the performance. If they confirm it, then they light the boosters and we go.
De DDO, attention pour le décompte final.
All right, watch for that. We'll see it when Ariane has cleared the tower.
10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, top. Allumage moteur Vulcain. Allumage des EAP et décollage.
Well, at 17:45 local time and right on time, Ariane began her mission, breaking through the low cloud cover into the clear blue sky above French Guiana here. Always very, very impressive sights. Our cameraman, René Zamor, is out in the balcony, and he's filming this. We have 7 cameras, actually, 5 in Jupiter, 2 on the site, giving us shots that are always impressive. We have a lot less cloud cover than I thought. Some beautiful shots. 772 tons burning now at liftoff as Ariane leaves the ground. She's burning 5 tons of fuel per second, 2.5 tons in each booster. And the core stage is burning another 300 kilometers of fuel per second. The noise from 14 kilometers away just reaching us here in Jupiter, taking that long, minute and a half to get here. Ariane is now following the program in the onboard computer, which gives all the orders, including the stage separations and all the rest, which you will shortly begin to see. Do you remember the liquid hydrogen that was circulating in the tanks at minus 240 degrees? The DDO is calling out that everything is normal on board. Well, right now, just a few centimeters away from that liquid hydrogen tank, the combustion chamber of the Vulcan main engine, the main stage engine, is burning at 3,000 degrees. And all that exhaust makes the launch base pretty much a no-go zone for about 4 hours after liftoff. We're in the first of 4 flight phases. The first 3 are powered and the last is not. We'll describe each in turn and in detail so you can follow Ariane as she heads across the Atlantic to separate her satellites over Africa, for Africa. Right now, the first flight phase, the single Vulcan core engine and the 2 boosters are burning, and the boosters have just burned out right on time. They burned their 240 tons for over 2 minutes, and the first to go, you can see how they're separated there. There's another one out of camera range on the left. The camera's not on board tonight. It's from an earlier flight, but the situation is the same. The boosters fall 500 kilometers from the shore in a protected area, because before each launch, civil security teams make sure that all areas lying under Ariane's flight path are evacuated. We took off with 772 tons. You will recall our mass now is down to 175 tons. So we have lost 600 tons, mainly fuel, in 2.5 minutes. We are in the second flight phase. The single engine is burning on the main stage. Next up, you'll hear the DDO call out jettison of the fairing. That's in just a few short seconds. And right on time, jettison the fairing. An idea of what that looks like. There's pyrotechnic cords that blow 2 halves of that, the other half on the right out of camera range. At 132 kilometers, right on schedule. We drop the fairing now since it's just more dead weight. It has done its job, which is to protect the satellites in the Earth's atmosphere from friction and vibrations. And once we're over 100 kilometers, basically, we don't need it anymore. Take a look at the left-hand side of the screen. On the top, you see the cursor climbing up the lines. There are 2 lines there. One is the optimal flight path and one is the real-time flight path. As long as one is superimposed on the other, we're right where we should be. On the bottom, the 2 bottom lines, kilometers and kilometers per second, you see. Kilometers is altitude, of course. We're at 155 kilometers. The speed under that, 2.61 kilometers per second. That's how fast we're traveling. The speed we need to inject the satellites is 9.4 kilometers per second. Back with more of the mission after the latest news from Arianespace. June 26th, and on its previous flight, Ariane successfully launched another dual passenger mission delivering payloads for the Middle East and South Korea. An Ariane 5 ECA placed Arabsat 5A and comms into geostationary transfer orbit, a total mass of 4 tons. We had a slight technical problem with the news, but as soon as they fix that one, we will be back. We had a lot to report on the news happening recently since the last flight on June 26th, I think it was. We've had a lot to report on Soyuz and on Vega and on some awards that were handed out to Jean-Yves Le Gall and on some other activities that took place on the East Coast and on the West Coast of America. So we don't want you to miss that. But as soon as we get that straightened away, we'll be back and you can watch the very exciting news. The DDO has just said there are 3 minutes left in the lower stage burn. Lower stage burn burns for roughly 10 minutes. And she pushes Ariane across the Atlantic, gaining the, I would say, 60%, if I'm not mistaken, of the speed she needs to inject the satellites. Everything is okay on board, says the DDO. We mentioned that the speed needed to inject a satellite is 9.4 kilometers per second. I think we're going to go back to the news now. We'll look at Air Liquide. July 22nd saw the first part of Air Liquide Diana's new facilities begin their service. Its 4 reservoirs will be able to stock 760 cubic meters of liquid oxygen and 750 of liquid nitrogen, thus assuring continuous production for both Ariane and Soyuz. Tests for the ground segment on the new light lift launcher Vega have been completed, and combined tests for the launcher's electrical systems began in mid-July at the new Vega Launch Center. This autumn, another series of tests will begin, this time to check her mechanical systems, and with a life-size mock-up of the new launch vehicle. Visitors to the Soyuz launch site are seeing for themselves how quickly the new facilities are nearing completion, both for the ground segment as well as on the launcher side. Building of the gantry in particular is proceeding apace, with recent addition of ventilation slats and cladding on the 50-meter structure. Testing of the new launch pad and facilities should be completed by the end of the year. A final news item. Just last week, Arianespace's ISO 9001 certification was renewed for the next 3 years. That's the 4th time in a row that the quality of Arianespace's processes and commitment to improvement were recognized by the certification audit. 1 minute left in the lower stage burn. The lower stage is carrying 150 tons of liquid oxygen at minus 160 degrees and 25 tons of liquid hydrogen at, do you remember, minus 240 degrees. Now, these propellants fabricated here at the space base by Air Liquide, whom you just saw in the news. Everything going according to plan here for flight number 196. And there it is. That's the ignition of the upper stage. This is what that looks like up there. 3 commands given in about 12 or 13 seconds. The extinction of the lower stage, separation of the lower stage, you can see it dropping back from what's left of the launcher, and the ignition of the upper stage. So now we are in the 3rd flight phase, the last powered one. The upper stage will burn for about 16 minutes, carrying 12 tons of liquid oxygen and about 2.5 tons of liquid hydrogen, pushing Ariane across the Atlantic, giving her the extra speed necessary to separate the 2 passengers. But apart from this propulsion role, the upper stage has another role, a second job, and we'll be discussing that in about 15 minutes when she's finished with her first job, which is pushing the launcher. There's another very interesting sequence that begins called the ballistics phase. We're in the second half of the mission. We can begin to focus on our 2 passengers now. NILESAT first, and up next is the first of 4 films.
NILESAT 201, which been launched tonight, will join in orbit 2 satellites which Arianespace already delivered for its operator NILESAT, 101 and 102. These 2 satellites were successfully launched in 1998 and 2000. It is proof of the confidence that NILESAT operator has in Arianespace launch service and solutions.
Like all upper berth satellites in a double launch, NILESAT has first to be integrated on its adapter, then the CILDA, before it can be hoisted atop the launcher. A word now from Frédéric Cugnot, NILESAT's Satellite Mission Director.
The double launch of 2 satellites built by TAS in the culmination of 2 years of work for our engineers and technicians. It took 25 months to design, build, test and deliver NILESAT 201. It will offer our client 7 kilowatts at the beginning of life to power the telecommunications payload in Ka and Ku bands. This power will be delivered with solar cells using a new technology, a first for a satellite of the line of space buses made by Thales Alenia Space.
After the satellite is weighed, tested, and filled with its propellant, it is mated onto the launcher. This final operation takes place in the final assembly building where NILESAT was readied for tonight's launch. NILESAT is the 3rd satellite launched by Ariane for this operator, NILESAT. NILESAT 101 went up in April of 1998, and 102 going up in August of 2000. Both of those satellites, by the way, weighing 1.8 tons. So you see how the new generation has grown, not quite double, but close to it. We're in the second half. In our second film, I should say, on NILESAT, we'll be hearing from Renald Sezenek, chairman of Thales Alenia Space, its builders.
First, let me say that this launch is very special for us because we are the prime contractor for both satellites, and everyone at NILESAT Arianespace feels personally involved in today's mission. Our fruitful relationship with NILESAT started over 10 years ago with our involvement in NILESAT 101 and 102. And we are very proud to deliver this latest addition to the fleet, NILESAT 201. It will play an important role in the dynamic broadcasting and emerging broadband markets in the Middle East and North Africa. It is fitted with powerful state-of-the-art Ku band and cutting-edge Ka-band technology. We are delighted to continue supporting NILESAT in this growth by delivering customized satellite products with outstanding performance. Congratulations to all the teams who have worked so hard on this mission. We wish NILESAT and their customers the very best for today's launch. Good luck, everybody.
While you were watching that film, we were picked up by our next downrange tracking station, Ascension Island. It's a tiny island in the South Atlantic, 10 square kilometers, belongs to the UK. NASA had a station there until 1989. They closed it, and the European Space Agency decided to build its own. It's now run by a private English firm. All of Ariane's trajectory designed to be followed from the ground. More coming up. Don't go away. Right now, our third film on NILESAT, on the operators this time.
The Egyptian satellite company NILESAT was established in 1996 to operate Egyptian satellite, associate ground control stations and uplink facilities. It has established 2 satellites to the 7 degrees west orbital slot, NILESAT 101 in April 1998 and NILESAT 102 in August 2000. Due to the vast demand for satellites in the hotspot 7 degrees west, NILESAT has planned for NILESAT's second-generation satellite and carries 24 transponders operating in the Ku band and 4 transponders operating in the Ka band. HD TV, broadband and IPTV are available and shall be promoted within the NILESAT 201 coverage. In May 2010, NILESAT broadcast over 560 TV channels and over 100 digital radio channels, among which are sports, business, news, kids, social, music, drama, and movie channels. All are uplinked either from Cairo, Dubai, Amman, Doha, Riyadh, and Beirut, covering North Africa, the Middle East, and the Gulf region. Among the services carried on board, NILESAT has on board exclusively the 3 pay-TV operators in the region. NILESAT viewership in the MENA region has shown robust growth from 11 million households in 2003 to more than 14 million households in 2010. NILESAT, the satellite of the Arabian family.
I think I said the second generation NILESAT is not quite double the way. That was wrong, wasn't I? It is, of course, it's double. 8 minutes left in the upper stage burn. You can see what's left of the launcher there. What is left is what remains. Remember our 772 tons. We're down to, guess how much? 26 tons up there. The engine burning on the left. The white band is the vehicle equipment bay. The black bell-shaped structure to the right of that is the CELDA. And NILESAT exposed, the box. The upper stage, now called the composite, which is making its way over toward Africa. Keeping your eye on the numbers, the speed, as you can see on the bottom, just under 8 kilometers per second. We're approaching separation speed, and our altitude 218 kilometers. Turning to our second passenger, RASCOM, take a look at the first of 4 films. The need for satellite services is increasing every year, and this is especially true of Africa. Thomas Panazzo, Arianespace's project director, explains the continent's fast growth as a market.
Today, Africa and the Middle East make up a region where consumer need for telecom services by satellite is in full expansion. As an example, in 2008, demand for satellite capacity grew by 12%, and operators are predicting another 5% growth in the next 5 years. RASCOM-STAR has become one of the main players on the African space scene.
For a more technical look at the satellite, we turn next to Guy Burle, the Satellite Mission Director at Thales Alenia Space.
The satellite RASCOM-QAF1R, part of the Spacebus 4000 B3 family, was built in less than 2 years by Thales Alenia Space. It will allow continuous service from RASCOM-QAF1, which, thanks to its Pan-African coverage, allows all inhabitants of the continent to benefit from direct TV, communications via satellite, and also internet access and rural telephone services. It has a mass at liftoff of 3 tons and 6.5 kilowatt of power. RASCOM-QAF1R will offer its customers superior power, 8 transponders in C-band and 12 in Ku-band. Its lifetime will be 19 years, thanks to the volume of propellant in its tanks.
Roughly 6 minutes left in the upper stage burn. We were picked up during the film by our next downrange tracking station in Libreville on the east coast of Africa. Libreville receives the telemetry for 10 to 15 minutes, and we'll see the upper stage burnout. Until Ariane 3, the last downrange station was in the Ivory Coast, but we needed a new one for Ariane 4. Another word now from Ronald Cesnik, the chief of Thales Alenia Space, on RASCOM-QAF1R.
Our other satellite today aboard Ariane 5 is RASCOM-QAF1R. And this is a big day for us because we have been on a journey for the RASCOM project right from the start as one of the shareholders and also as prime for the satellite. RASCOM-QAF1R is a very important program for Africa. It will help bridge the digital divide, providing rural telephony, broadband, internet, and other innovative services at an affordable cost to the entire continent. This new satellite will complement and back up RASCOM-QAF1, which was launched over 2 years ago. At Thales Alenia Space, we are committed to supporting RASCOM-STAR-QAF and other operators to expand their success by providing customized satellite products and services. Our best wishes to RASCOM-STAR-QAF and to Africa for this launch, and once again, good luck, everyone.
4 minutes left in the upper stage burn. Just another word on telemetry for Soyuz, which will launch toward the east like Ariane. The telemetry people will be using the Ariane stations that we've been monitoring here, but they will adapt them for the Russian vehicle. And, by the way, last June 30th, Soyuz successfully flew for the 1,758th time, launched by Arianespace and Starsem from Baikonur. More of the mission after this film from RASCOM-STAR-QAF.
Fostering the overall development of Africa using cutting-edge technology is the mission of RASCOM-STAR-QAF. RASCOM-STAR-QAF will provide a satellite-based communication infrastructure to rural areas, improve and develop inter-urban communication in each country, improve direct connections within the continent and provide broadcasting facilities. RASCOM-STAR-QAF complements the existing telecommunications, computing and broadcasting networks. The RASCOM system offers, in addition to a new satellite designed for Africa, an innovative ground segment with a bandwidth optimization. The mission of RASCOM-STAR is unique: to operate a satellite designed by Africans for Africa. This is possible thanks to the initiative of RASCOM, an international satellite organization, representing, as of today, the interest of 45 telecommunication operators. Under the leadership of Faraj El Amari, the CEO, RASCOM-QAF has developed a telecommunication satellite system based on state-of-the-art products. RASCOM-QAF1R replaces RASCOM-QAF1, the first satellite of the system. RASCOM-QAF controls and operates its satellites from Ariane Station in Libya and Douala Center in Cameroon. RASCOM-QAF1R, equipped with 24 equivalent 36 MHz transponders, located at 2.9 degrees east and thus offering an excellent visibility from the whole continent, has a lifetime of 15 years and offers a global coverage in C-band and 2 spot beams in Ku band. The satellite location in orbit focuses on the African continent and provides excellent coverage of key markets, North Ku band coverage and South Ku band coverage. RASCOM-QAF1R offers a universal access to telephony, fax, data transmission, internet access, audio, TV reception. Rural areas will finally enter the age of information technology. The RASCOM system can directly interconnect continental or national transit centers located anywhere in Africa. RASCOM-QAF is the African satellite operator for Africa.
Maybe you noticed during the film portions of the broadcast, you can keep track of the mission in real time by the 3D animations that's just above the speed and altitude figures on the left in the blue band. We were picked up by Malindi, that's the African station for our African charter tonight. There are actually 2 stations here. Normally one is tracking a satellite already in orbit and the other is on the Ariane flight, but they're both watching us tonight. Like Ariane 4 needed a new station, so did Ariane 5, so he opened a 5th tracking station for Arianespace's second launch. It receives Ariane 5 data, the longest, for about 3 hours after liftoff. Malindi was also, you might recall, the site of the San Marco launch pad, which is the Italian launch project that functioned between 1964 and 1988. The DDO has just called out extinction of the upper stage motor. You see the engine shutting down right there at 584 kilometers, right on time. The order to shut down this engine is given by the onboard computer, as are all the orders, when it senses the targeted orbit has been reached by Ariane, the DDO calling out what's going on up there. It marks the end of the powered flight phase, which is what he just said. We're now into the final flight phase, which is unpowered. We mentioned the upper stage as a dual roll propulsion. That roll is over. The ballistic phase has just begun. We're coasting, but that doesn't mean nothing is happening. The composite, which is what they call what's left of the Ariane, is being maneuvered and spun in a series of, tonight, 21 operations, and you can see on the vehicle equipment bay on the right the white nozzles popping on and off. These are thruster engines, which are moving the launcher now. You can see it's counterclockwise. These thrusts range in time from 3 seconds to almost 3 minutes. It's different for each flight, but that's the order this evening. We have to separate the first satellite in one direction, and then the Silda, the black structure underneath NILESAT, in a second direction, and finally the other satellite, RASCOM, in yet a third direction. The attitude and control system uses these small thrusters to perform a series of maneuvers, and they are orienting the composite in the different directions required by the first satellite, and then they will separate it. Then they will start a second series of moves to orient the Silda, and then separate it, and finally the same for the lower passenger. All this is programmed in advance, and the information is in the onboard computer. The launcher knows precisely what it has to do, where it is, and where it's going at all times. There are, on the outside of the launcher, 12 of these thrusters. There are 4 clusters of 3 of them, and they're placed in opposite positions, and they're using gaseous hydrogen, which comes from the hydrogen tanks on board, to provide the thrust. And as you can see, they can move the composite in any direction, yaw, pitch, and roll. And this is how the upper stage performs all these attitude maneuvers to separate the 2 spacecraft and the Silda. The professionals call it a space ballet, which is not a bad description of it.
Phase d'orientation normale.
NILESAT separation just ahead, but first a final word from Frédéric Cugnot on what happens once the satellite is released.
Once the satellite is separated from the launcher, a new phase begins. I would like to pay my respects to the teams in Cairo, Alexandria, Cannes, Fucino, Cubsan and Carpentersville. They have already begun taking over the control of the satellite. First, during 10 days, operations and maneuver will be realized to transfer the satellite to its geostationary orbital position. Then, from the newly built NILESAT 201 ground station in Cairo, the payload will be checked by Thales Arianespace and the customer. After 1 month of tests, the satellite will be delivered to the customer and the commercial phase can begin for 15 years.
Waiting for separation of NILESAT. In just a few short seconds. One interesting note you might not know, all the systems we're talking about on the launcher, energy systems, propellant, they all have a use-by date. And if they're not used, then they're thrown away. In the vehicle equipment bay, for example, some of the mechanical parts, like the joints or the shock absorbers, have to be used by September of next year. The engine's use-by date is next January 21st. There's a similar system on airplanes and in your car, I think, and of course on some of the food in your refrigerator, and also in the space program.
Séparation de NILESAT 201.
And there we are, the first good news. We see some smiles, but we don't have a lot of applause. Well, yes, we do. We have a lot of applause from our Egyptian friends. Congratulations. NILESAT, you see how that works? It's pushed away from the composite by a series of springs. I think there are 8 of them. Happened at 1,1200 kilometers roughly, right on time. Now that NILESAT is up, what's going to be happening? Well, there will be 3 apogee burns on the 1st, 3rd, and 5th days. The solar array and reflectors will be deployed on the 6th day. The end of all these activities will be reached on the 10th day. And in just over a month, 35 days, will come the end of payload in-orbit testing, and the satellite will be on its final position. So, good luck to you, NILESAT. NILESAT, you saw it separated using a system of special adapters, which are the same for both passengers tonight, as a matter of fact. And these adapters are equipped with a low-shock separation system built by a Swedish firm, Arianespace, and a Spanish firm, EADS Casa. And the system will also be used on Vega and Soyuz, which means that satellites can be launched on any member of the Ariane family. The Silda, due to be separated in just a few short seconds. And you can see the composite spun around in a different orientation. The Silda should be separated in just about 2 or 3 seconds. And then that will reveal RASCOM-QAF1R. There it is, pushed away again with a series of springs. RASCOM now facing the elements, awaiting her separation in just about 2 minutes, which gives us time, I think, for the quiz question. See if anybody can get this out there. Arianespace quiz question number 196. Tonight's launch is a double launch, we mentioned. It's also an international launch for Egypt and Africa. We have launched 3 times before for these customers, and all those launches have also been double launches and international launches. Here's the question. Can you name any of the nationalities or the co-passengers on the previous launches for these customers? In other words, who flew with NILESAT 101, NILESAT 102, and RASCOM-QAF1? I'll give you the answer in a minute, but while you're thinking, our final film on RASCOM-QAF1R's separation.
Once separated from the Ariane 5 launcher, RASCOM-QAF1R is under Thales Arianespace operator's control in order to transfer it to the final orbital design position. To perform these activities, the satellite's equipment will be very active during this operational phase. 3 apogee kick boosts will raise the perigee by several thousand kilometers, increasing the speed by 1,800 meters per second. This means 6,400 kilometers per hour. Ending this operation, all the payload will be tested by end of September and delivered to the customer will take over control and commercialization.
Our friends at RASCOM waiting. They have about 30 seconds before separation. a part of the space ballet, don't forget, we're putting 4 different pieces of space hardware, so they have to go in different directions. NILESAT is separated at about 35,780 kilometers, and RASCOM 20 kilometers higher up to avoid a collision. The SILDA goes underneath NILESAT at 35,770 kilometers, and the ECA will drop at 35,730 kilometers, avoiding any collisions and space debris, good for the environment. Final seconds before separation of the second passenger.
Séparation de RASCOM-QAF1R.
There it is, right on time. More applause. Very happy faces. As you can see, smiles all around. Right on time at 32 minutes and 46 seconds after launch. RASCOM joining the family of satellites launched by Arianespace. 3 apogee burns for RASCOM-QAF1R, like for NILESAT, on the 2nd, 3rd, and 5th day. On the 6th day, reflector and solar array deployments. 10 days, the end of the post-separation activities and the beginning of in-orbit testing, which will last 20 days. After which time, in about a month, the satellite drifts. It starts its drift, I should say, to final orbit. And in 42 days, the station will be on its final orbit, so good luck to RASCOM. We're waiting for the traditional speeches. We'll be hearing from Jean-Yves Le Gall and our passengers, and probably from Thales. The quiz question, did anybody get that? Watch a replay. First, we'll get to the answer.
Fonctionnement du lanceur est nominal. Et la trajectoire est normale.
Some beautiful shots that took place half an hour ago. You can relive those exciting moments while we're waiting for Jean-Yves Le Gall to come out. Can you name any of the nationalities or the co-passengers in the previous launches? Well, with NILESAT 101, BSAT 1B, the Japanese, NILESAT 102, BrazilSat B4 from Brazil, and with RASCOM-QAF1, Horizons 2, which was an international organization satellite. So if you got any of those, congratulations. You will give yourself a round of applause, and you can probably, as a prize, be able to watch a second replay coming up.
Décollage. Fonctionnement du lanceur est nominal. Et la trajectoire est normale.
Other fine shots. That second replay was from another observation sites. There are about half a dozen of them here on the base. That one is called Toucan, after the bird, which is much closer to the pad, about 4 kilometers. The crowd around the podium is waiting for Jean-Yves Le Gall, who's making his way out from the fishbowl, which is on the other side, where the technicians are, and he'll be first to speak, and he'll introduce the other speakers. Looking ahead, after separation, the satellites, of course, go to geostationary transfer orbit. Jean-Yves Le Gall is ready. Mr. Le Gall, you have the floor.
Bien. Donc, comme vous venez de le voir, ce 52e lancement d'Ariane 5
second launch of Ariane 5 has just delivered on their GTO orbit NILESAT 201 and RASCOM-QAF1R, and it's a great pleasure for me to be witnessing this. Of course, it is the 38th success in a row for Ariane 5, and since the beginning of 2010, we have launched 6 major telecommunications satellites, which is more, I underline this, than all my competitors together. Thank you, because not so long ago it was quite the opposite, so it shows that things can change and do so rapidly in this business. I would like to, first of all, thank our clients for the trust they have placed in us, and in particular, all of you who have come from the Middle East and Africa to witness this new successful launch at the CSG Space Center. I would also like to greet the high governmental authorities that followed the broadcast of this launch from the African continent, and would like to tell them that we are taking great pride in having been able for 30 years to contribute to the development and satellite coverage of Africa. NILESAT 201 is the third satellite that we launched for NILESAT. Therefore, I would like to thank my friend Ahmed Anis, the CEO of NILESAT, for the trust that he has placed with his company in Arianespace for the last 15 years. This new satellite will provide some high-definition direct television services on Africa, North Africa, Middle East and the Gulf region, and after the NILESAT 101 in 1988 and NILESAT 102 in 2000, we are very proud to celebrate this new step in our partnership. Again, thank you very much for your trust. Now, as far as RASCOM-QAF1R is concerned, it's the second satellite that we launched for the RASCOM organization with its 46 African states, which I all thank. With this new satellite, all of the African continent and part of Europe and the Middle East will benefit by innovative services which are fundamental to the particularly fast development of telecommunications in these regions of the world. Therefore, I would like to extend my heartfelt thanks to Mr. El Amari, the Managing Director of RASCOM-QAF, for the trust he has always placed in Arianespace, and again tonight has been rewarded for this. Last but not least, I would like to thank Thales Alenia Space, which can enjoy today the double satisfaction of having two of its satellites launched by Arianespace. And I must say that we have launched about and more two-thirds of the satellites manufactured by Thales Alenia Space. Successes as tonight's will continue, as after this launch our order book still has some 32 satellites and 6 ATVs to be launched, therefore 22 Ariane 5 launches and also 17 launches for Soyuz. It's also my great pleasure to announce that among these 32 satellites we will launch GSAT-10 for ISRO in India. We signed the contract a few little time ago, and Intelsat 20 for Intelsat. I would like to thank all those who contribute day after day to these successes, the European Space Agency and all its member states, CLES and all our industrial partners, and of course the teams of Arianespace, which again have achieved an impeccable launch and are already preparing for the next one. This is what I wanted to tell you, and again it's a new record with 6 satellites launched since the beginning of the year, out of a total of 11 worldwide. And now I'll leave the floor to our clients for NILESAT 201, Mr. Anas El Fekhi, Egyptian Minister for Information, who will be talking to us from Cairo, and then for RASCOM-QAF1R, Mr. Faraj El Amari, and for Thales Alenia Space, Mr. Emmanuel Graf. So if you hear me, dear Minister, the floor is over to you.
Hello. Hello. أيضا عاوزين نكلمك كلمة على الهواء، حاول تكلمك. ألو. عندك رسالة لي. أنا بحضر الرقم بتاعهم. ألو. مش موجود؟ لا عربي للحضور. كلمة. شمس شوفهم. ألو.
Ça marchera mieux lorsque NILESAT sera en service.
It will work much better once NILESAT is in service, I must say, says Mr. Legal.
I just would like to congratulate the whole team of Ariane, and I would like to congratulate the team of NILESAT for a successful launch of Ariane 5 and NILESAT 2001. ولزملائنا الاعزاء من النايلسات الموجودين اللي هو احمد انيس والمهندس صلاح حمزه والزملاء الاعزاء، انا بهنيهم ومصر كلها فخوره بهذا العمل. We are truly proud of what you achieved tonight. It's a great achievement for the Egyptian media and added value to the NILESAT company, which has been very successful in our region. And congratulations to all of you. Thank you very much.
Thanks to Minister of Information of Egypt. So this is the 38th consecutive successful launch for Ariane 5. So my warmest congratulations to everyone. So putting RASCOM-QAF1R in orbit has been an immense challenge, and we are all here to witness the fulfillment of the hard work of the whole involvement. So first and foremost, on behalf of the all African community, I want to thank all the contributors for the job well done. Our leader, Muammar Gaddafi, for his long-standing support throughout difficult times and for his vision of the better Africa. Then our shareholders, our lenders, and the RASCOM organization for their patience. A special mention to our customer and first client who trusted us. I would like to thank the Excellency Minister of Telecommunication of Guinea and Excellency Minister of Telecommunication of Central Africa, and to our brother Hamadoun Touri, Secretary General of ITU, at this prestigious launch event. So I want to thank Arianespace for the beautiful launch and superb organization, as well as Thales Alenia Space, who built this satellite. They have made the challenge in the perfect way and in a very short time. Your Excellency, the brother leader Muammar Gaddafi, and RASCOM members and shareholders, all distinguished friends, customers and guests, I would like to express my deep gratitude for your strong and sustained effort in bringing this African dream to fruition. I say this particularly in light of the many challenges we have been facing and difficulty we had to overcome together. I am especially proud of this accomplishment. 2.5 years ago, we were just witnessing the launch of the first satellite. Well, we had to do it twice. It took a lot of determination, and our motivation hasn't changed. While the new satellite was being built, the inauguration of our satellite control center station in Ariane, Libya, occurred last September in the presence of our leader Muammar Gaddafi and distinguished representative from RASCOM organization. For the very first time in history, as soon as the other control station in the Côte d'Ivoire is operational, Africa will have full control of this satellite. And looking forward, we are already contemplated future satellite. So our control centers in Ariane, Libya, and Douala, Cameroon are operational. From these centers, we monitor and control our satellite. I am also proud to say that we used the time to refine the development of our telecommunication services. After selection of supplier of the technology, and thanks to the support of our lenders, African Development Bank, Libyan Foreign Bank, BDAC, and BOAD, we signed the development of our ground telecommunication infrastructure with the world leader in satellite communication system, VA196. Progress has been swift. The first factory acceptance have been completed. Installation started, and we plan to open the first services within the next few months. Now, thanks to RASCOM-QAF1R and its associated ground equipment, Africa will be able to benefit from communication in rural area at an affordable cost, communication between regional capitals and cities, between cities and villages, and between villages, direct connections between all the African countries, resulting in saving several $100 million paid annually to operators outside Africa for traffic between African countries. Our satellite benefits from a prime orbital position over Africa with unmatched footprints. Telecoms can subscribe to RASCOM StarCAF services too, connect over 130,000 isolated villages to the telephone network via low-cost terminal, and also to the internet. Provide high-speed Pan-African backbone connecting all countries and regional capital. Provide all such services with a long-term and quality perspective, while maintaining the objectives of high investment yields. Other future services are also contemplated and will be progressively offered, in particular in the field of the GSM backhauling. All of this has been made possible because of the support of our brother leader Muammar Gaddafi and the support of our shareholders, Libyan African Investment Portfolio, RASCOM, and Thales Arianespace, and our lenders, African Development Bank, Libyan Foreign Bank, BDAC, and BOAD. I want to also thank our insurance broker, Willis, for its advice and putting together our global insurance scheme, for it would not have been possible to rebuild and insure this satellite as quickly as effectively without them. Finally, I thank to our chairman and board member of RASCOM StarCAF, and thanks to my team in RASCOM StarCAF for its dedication, innovative spirit, and great effort to bring about the success of our mission over Africa. Again, thanks to all, and congratulations.
Je tiens à remercier
Arianespace for this fantastic launch carried out today. As we remember, we have a long-standing track record of launching with you. This is the third launch for this year for Arianespace.
I would like to address my very warm welcome to NILESAT and RASCOM-QAF1R for their trust in that they put in Arianespace for carrying out and delivering these programs. This is a very ambitious program for the Middle East and Africa. I would like to thank Arianespace teams, the teams of NILESAT, RASCOM-QAF, the teams of Thales Arianespace that contributed to the success of this range and the success of this launch. So all the best. Looking forward to further successes for NILESAT and RASCOM-STAR for the future. And looking forward to maintaining strong relationship with the commercial teams as well as with the CEOs of these two companies. Thank you very much.
Good evening. And actually, I don't have a written word, but I'm trying actually to tell you what I'm feeling now for being here for the first time. Of course, I was following what was going on in these facilities before through the net, and I kept always congratulating my dear friend, Monsieur Lagal, for the following success, which I have seen myself. Today, really, it gives me great pleasure and honor to be here for the first time in these facilities. I really felt happy. I felt proud because, as I heard from some of my friends here, that we are members of one family. Yes, and I am proud too to have with this family, I mean, NILESAT and Ariane, and of course Thales. We are really very proud to have also with us RASCOM-STAR-QAF. It really was good opportunity for us to be a twin in one vehicle, which make both of us share the same feeling. Anyway, let me first of all thank Ariane, thank Thales, thank my staff and my company. They are doing a great job with Thales people and with Ariane people. It really makes us all proud to be here and watch what's going on, how they are dealing with things. And at my word, actually, it's very important for me to remind people that some of my friends here come quite often from time to time, maybe since now 1998. And now we are not ending our trip to this area. I'm sure we will come maybe soon. This is going to take some time, of course, but our cooperation and our relation with both Ariane and Thales is going to continue for a quite time. Let me, at the end of my few words, congratulate my president and my people in NILESAT, my people in Egypt. My president, he was the one who declared that we have to be in this field in 1996, and we really started that job in 1998. And now, in his era also, we are entering the second generation with NILESAT 201. I hope that this is going to be a very successful business with the help of Thales people and Ariane people and my staff, of course. And again, also, I'd like to congratulate our minister, Mr. Anas El-Fiqhi, who was just talking to all of us. Unfortunately, some of you may not be able to hear him, but he was asking us actually to convert his gratitude and his congratulation for all of you. Again, I'd like to thank all of you for being with us, sharing us this fruitful and this successful job. Thank you and goodbye.
This is definitely a great day, a wonderful moment. And I just want to pay tribute to all of us who are here for celebrating this event. But first, I want to recognize the presence of our honorable ministers from Africa who are here and to thank them for coming. I also recognize the presence of the Secretary General of the International Telecommunication Union, Dr. Amadou Toure, our brother. Thanks for coming. Certainly, I have to recognize the presence of the Secretary General of the African Telecommunication Union, Mr. Kosi Akosi, who is here. I think what we are trying to see here today is witnessing another key milestone in the implementation of the RASCOM mission. Through this event, we are reiterating our long-term commitment to the mission of RASCOM and objective for which we were created. And I'm glad that we are also talking about Connect Africa, which is very dear to the African continent. And you're also championing Mr. Amadou Toure, Secretary General. We all know very well that this is happening today because of a number of people, and that's why I'm standing here in order to express my thanks. I want to say thank you to my dear brother, Engineer Faraji Ramari, as CEO of RASCOM-QAF1R, for leading the company to where we are today. Under your leadership, we are very proud that we are able to reach here. I'm also very thankful to the technical team that you're leading, under Francois Panzani, who is not here, but I'm sure that he's also witnessing this event wherever he is, and all the team members in RASCOM-QAF1R. My special thanks should go to Thales, who have been involved in the manufacture, and they have accompanied us to where we are today, and all the engineers here today who have made it possible for us to celebrate. I just want to recognize the presence of our board members from RASCOM-QAF1R who have been with us and shared this pain of driving the process of reaching where we are today. And I want to say thank you. I see Yves de la Selle is here. I see Francois de Grivel is here. I see Subhash Lela is here. I see Elazabi is here. Elabash is here. And this is wonderful that with me as the chairman of the board, we are able to drive this process to where we are. Thank you very much. I want to pay tribute to our young engineers who have just joined RASCOM-QAF1R, who are in Garian and Douala, and I think they'll be able to manage this wonderful technology and be able to provide the wonderful services which are expected to our people in Africa. I want to pay tribute to our leaders in Africa who are following this event and from whom we derive their political will in order to continue to implement this vision. Thanks all for being with us. All I wanted to say, again, I have to say thank you to our RASCOM staff, who are, some of them are here, the Vice Presidents for Engineering and the Vice President for Finance and Administration, all those staff who are listening wherever they are in Africa. This is just the beginning, and we'll be back for several more launches of more satellites to serve Africa. Thank you very much.
Right, thank you very much for these very kind words. Therefore, we will be back here in a bit more than a month on the 15th of September to launch a new Ariane 5 ECA with the satellites to W3B of Eutelsat and BSat 3B, which is satellite for the Japanese operator, so it will be again a dual launch with Ariane 5. So thank you again for being with us. 6 big satellites launched since the beginning of the year. Again, we are leading the pack, and I'm quite glad. Thank you and goodbye.
So over this final replay, we will say goodbye. That'll do it for us from Kourou, where once again the news is that Ariane 5 has delivered 2 new satellites beginning life, joining the ranks of 281 satellites delivered by Ariane for 77 customers. That makes 38 straight. Next launch in September, as you heard, you won't want to miss it. We'll be here. We hope you will be too. Until then, Joshua Jampel for everybody here at the Space Base and for Arianespace saying thank you for being with us. We hope you enjoyed it. We certainly did. We'll see you next time. Good night, everyone.
Fonctionnement du lanceur est nominal. Et la trajectoire est normale.